The instant those words escaped his lips, everything changed. Holger Rune sat there, mid-interview, completely unaware he'd just ignited tennis's biggest controversy in years. One name. One pause. One unmistakable smile. Alex Eala. What began as routine press turned into the revelation nobody saw coming, and what followed would shake the tennis world to its core. Picture this: Denmark's explosive young star, ranked inside the top 10, known for his fierce backhand and even fiercer temper, suddenly going soft when asked about rising women's players. The 21-year-old who demolished Grand Slam champions and carried his nation's tennis dreams on his shoulders, caught completely off guard by a simple question. His eyes shifted left, accessing real memory instead of rehearsed responses. That smile crept across his face, the kind you can't fake, the kind that gives everything away. And then he said her name with a tenderness that made everyone watching lean forward in their seats. But who is Alex Eala, and why did mentioning her name trigger the most intense fan investigation tennis has ever witnessed? Here's where this story gets absolutely fascinating. While Holger Rune dominated ATP headlines with his explosive playing style, Alex Eala was quietly rewriting history thousands of miles away. The Filipino sensation who became her nation's first Grand Slam junior champion, the barrier-breaking warrior grinding through WTA 125 tournaments while carrying the hopes of 110 million people on her back. Think about that weight for a second. Every time she stepped onto a court, she wasn't just playing for rankings or prize money. She represented an entire country's tennis aspirations, proving that Filipino athletes belonged among the world's elite. Her journey from qualifier to main tour competitor wasn't just impressive, it was revolutionary. And somehow, across different circuits, different continents, different competitive universes, Holger Rune had been watching. Not casually. Not occasionally. Actually studying her game with the kind of attention that suggested something far deeper than professional courtesy. The way he described her movement patterns, her mental resilience in pressure moments, her complete game development, these weren't observations from catching one viral highlight reel. This was detailed technical analysis from someone who'd invested serious time watching her matches, plural, multiple matches across different tournaments and surfaces. But wait, it gets even more intriguing. These two young phenoms represented mirror images of the same impossible pressure. Both thrust into stardom before their early 20s, both serving as their nation's sole representative at tennis's highest level, both possessing that rare fusion of technical brilliance and mental toughness that separates future champions from talented players who plateau. Both understanding that unique isolation of carrying national expectations while competing in the loneliest sport imaginable. The professional tennis circuit, despite spanning continents, operates like a small interconnected village. Same hotels, identical practice facilities, shared player lounges where future Hall of Famers sit beside hopeful qualifiers chasing their dreams. Holger Rune and Eala existed in these overlapping circles, their paths crossing at combined ATP-WTA events, both navigating treacherous waters of living up to early breakthrough success. Yet nobody imagined they'd actually really noticed each other, until that interview exposed everything. What happens when professional restraint crumbles and genuine emotion breaks through? The press session started exactly like hundreds before it, completely routine, entirely forgettable. Holger Rune relaxed in his practice gear near the courts, tennis balls echoing in the background, seemingly prepared to cruise through another 15 minutes of predictable media obligations. The journalist opened with standard fare, tournament preparation, draw analysis, injury recovery from the previous event. Holger Rune responded with practiced smoothness, the kind of autopilot answers athletes perfect after thousands of identical exchanges. Yes, he felt strong. Yes, his knee had healed completely. Yes, he anticipated challenging competition. Nothing remotely interesting, nothing anyone would remember 5 minutes later. Then came the question that detonated everything. The journalist asked about rising women's players, specifically who Holger Rune admired or followed among the WTA competitors also attending that week's combined event. Completely innocuous, designed merely to fill airtime, probably expecting mentions of Coco Gauff or Mira Andreeva, the obvious choices everyone already discussed endlessly. But watch what happened next, because this moment reveals everything. Holger Rune paused, except this wasn't his typical brief hesitation before delivering diplomatic responses. This pause stretched longer, noticeably longer, his eyes drifting left as human eyes do when accessing genuine memories rather than reciting prepared statements. And then came that smile, involuntary and almost embarrassed, completely different from his professional press conference expression. When he finally spoke, her name emerged softer than every previous answer, carrying unmistakable warmth that immediately shifted the interview's entire energy. "Alex Eala," he said, and suddenly everyone paying attention recognized something significant was happening. He didn't stop at her name. He launched into specific, detailed praise about her impact on Filipino tennis, her fighting spirit in every single match, her journey through qualifying rounds and smaller tournaments to earn main tour opportunities. The way he spoke wasn't generic athlete praising athlete boilerplate. These were genuine observations, real analysis, heartfelt admiration. The journalist sensed blood in the water and pressed forward. "You actually follow her results?" Another pause, another visible shift in Holger Rune's composure, the confident top 10 player suddenly resembling a 21-year-old caught discussing a crush. He tried playing it casual, suggesting lots of players probably followed her career, but then he made a critical mistake. He got specific again, discussing her complete game structure, her exceptional movement patterns, her mental strength in tight matches that absolutely cannot be coached. "You either possess that quality or you don't, and she definitely possesses it." This wasn't surface-level praise from watching one highlight package. This was technical breakdown from someone who'd watched extensively, someone who'd analyzed her game across multiple matches and situations. The specificity gave everything away. But here's where Holger Rune sealed his fate. The journalist asked about direct interaction, whether they'd practiced together or discussed tennis. Holger Rune, now fully aware this questioning had ventured somewhere unexpected, tried containing the situation. They'd talked a few times in tournament player lounges, casual stuff, but he respected her dedication immensely. Then he added the sentence that would dominate tennis social media for the next week solid. "She's someone I think is going to surprise a lot of people. She has everything necessary to break into the top 50, maybe significantly higher. And when she does, people will finally realize how special she truly is." Catch that word choice. When she does, not if she does. When. That certainty, that specific prediction, that personal investment in another player's future success, especially a player competing on an entirely different tour whom he theoretically had zero professional reason to follow so closely. The interview continued several more minutes, returning to safer topics like serve mechanics and tournament strategy, but the revelation had already escaped containment. Within 60 minutes, the clip circulated online. Within 2 hours, tennis Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok exploded with shares and speculation. Within 3 hours, Filipino tennis fans had created emotional compilation videos titled things like "Holger Rune respects Alex Eala" set to dramatic music. Within 6 hours, gossip accounts posted side-by-side photos with captions wildly speculating about hidden meanings. Holger Rune had committed the cardinal sin professional athletes are trained religiously to avoid. He'd revealed something genuine, something unguarded, something that felt to absolutely everyone watching like far more than simple professional respect between colleagues. The internet was about to absolutely lose its collective mind, and this was merely the opening act of something far bigger. Tennis fans don't just watch matches, they investigate like detectives solving major crimes. When Holger Rune's interview dropped, the tennis internet transformed into something resembling a forensic investigation team, except instead of solving murders, they were solving the mystery of exactly how deep Holger Rune's admiration for Alex Eala actually ran, and what they discovered was absolutely fascinating. It ignited on Twitter when a Filipino tennis fan account posted the interview clip with the caption noting Holger Rune's unmistakable smile and tone. Within literal minutes, quote tweets flooded in from every corner of tennis social media. Comments dissected every micro-expression, every word choice, every pause. Professional athletes don't discuss other players with this level of personal investment unless something deeper exists, one viral tweet observed. Then someone decided to forensically examine Holger Rune's entire social media history, and that's when things escalated dramatically. A user scrolling back 7 months discovered a practice photo Alex Eala had posted from a training session in Spain. Buried 73 comments deep sat a single fire emoji from Holger Rune's verified account. At the time, nobody noticed. Holger Rune had 800,000 followers. Eala had approximately 200,000. One emoji easily disappeared into digital noise. But now, with hindsight's clarity, it felt like discovered evidence in a developing case. Then investigators found another interaction. Eala had posted a story 5 months prior celebrating her first WTA main draw victory, tagging the tournament and sponsors. Holger Rune had viewed it. Instagram doesn't publicly display story views to everyone, but somehow a screenshot from Eala's close friends list leaked, showing Holger Rune's account among the viewers. The detective work intensified exponentially. A tennis photographer's archive revealed a background shot from Indian Wells, one of those major combined ATP-WTA events. In the background of a practice court photograph, Holger Rune and Alex Eala both waited for courts, engaged in what clearly appeared to be friendly conversation. They were laughing together. The photo had been taken 4 months ago, received maybe 40 likes when originally posted, completely ignored by everyone. Now it was being shared thousands upon thousands of times with captions analyzing their body language and interaction. YouTube creators who specialized in tennis drama immediately began producing content. Video titles like Holger Rune's secret crush exposed and why Alex Eala has ATP players' attention started accumulating hundreds of thousands of views. The algorithm worked its magic, pushing these videos to massive audiences who might never have heard of either player previously. TikTok developed its own entire ecosystem of speculation and content. Editors created romantic montages cutting Holger Rune's matches together with Eala's matches, setting everything to trending songs about secret admiration and unspoken feelings. One particularly creative video compared their playing styles in detail, noting surprising similarities in court positioning and shot selection patterns, suggesting they might have actually discussed strategic concepts together. It accumulated 2.3 million views in 72 hours. Reddit's tennis community created a massive megathread titled The Rune-Eala Situation, comprehensive timeline of everything we know. Users compiled every single interaction, every possible connection point, every tournament where they'd been in the same city simultaneously. Someone discovered they'd both trained briefly at the Moratoglu Academy years earlier, though at different times. Someone else unearthed an old interview where Eala mentioned regularly practicing against male players to elevate her game. Could Holger Rune have been one of them? The speculation spiraled. The Filipino tennis community was experiencing something entirely unprecedented in their sporting history. Alex Eala had put their nation on tennis's global map through her historic achievements, breaking barriers and shattering expectations. But this was qualitatively different. This was one of the ATP Tour's biggest young stars publicly praising her with specificity and warmth that felt intensely personal, not merely professional courtesy. Filipino sports talk shows dedicated entire segments to debating what it meant. Morning radio programs in Manila discussed it extensively. This transcended tennis news, becoming entertainment news, relationship news, national pride news all simultaneously. However, not everyone was celebrating this attention. Some of Eala's dedicated fans questioned why this had become a story at all. She's an incredible player on her own merit, one viral tweet declared. She doesn't need validation from a male player to be worthy of attention and coverage. The tweet accumulated 15,000 likes rapidly, sparking a secondary debate about whether all this attention on Holger Rune's comments actually undermined Eala's individual achievements by making her notable primarily in relation to a man's opinion rather than her own accomplishments. Danish fans had their own divided reactions. Some found it endearing that their tennis star showed this vulnerable human side beneath his competitive persona. Others worried it was becoming an unwelcome distraction. Holger Rune should focus on his game, not on WTA players, one Danish tennis forum comment argued. He's had an inconsistent season already. This is the last thing he needs dominating media coverage. Professional tennis journalists who actually cover the sport for major publications found themselves in an unusual position. Was this actually a legitimate story worth covering? One respected reporter tweeted their perspective. I've covered professional tennis for 20 years. Players admire each other constantly, but the way Holger Rune spoke about Eala, that level of specific technical knowledge combined with that personal investment in her future success, I've genuinely never heard one player discuss another quite like that before. The speculation reached absolute fever pitch when someone discovered both Holger Rune and Eala were entered in an upcoming combined event scheduled 2 weeks away. The possibility of them attending the same tournament simultaneously, potentially giving interviews about each other, potentially being photographed together, potentially interacting where cameras could capture everything, became the tennis internet's most anticipated subplot heading into that event. But here's what absolutely nobody expected or predicted. The backlash that was about to explode across tennis media, challenging every assumption about whether this attention was actually helpful or harmful. For every person celebrating and enjoying Holger Rune's comments about Alex Eala, there emerged someone else who perceived the situation through an entirely different lens, seeing potential problems that needed addressing. And as the story continued dominating tennis social media relentlessly, the criticism grew louder, more pointed, and increasingly impossible to ignore or dismiss. It started with a viral thread from a prominent WTA fan account asking difficult questions. Can we talk about how problematic this entire Holger Rune Eala situation actually is? A top ATP player's opinion suddenly makes Eala legitimate in people's eyes. She's been grinding and achieving for years, but now people care because a man finally noticed her. This is exactly what's fundamentally wrong with how we cover women's tennis. The thread struck a nerve immediately. Within hours, it had been retweeted thousands of times with tennis journalists, former players, and women's sports advocates adding their own perspectives and concerns. The criticism wasn't directed at Holgeren's admiration itself. Most people acknowledged his comments seemed genuinely heartfelt. The problem, critics argued, was the massively disproportionate attention those comments received compared to the attention Alex Eala's actual achievements had generated throughout her career. A prominent tennis journalist wrote an opinion column titled "Alex Eala Doesn't Need Holgeren's Approval." The piece meticulously outlined Eala's accomplishments, her Grand Slam junior title, her steady climb up WTA rankings despite limited funding and institutional support, her groundbreaking role as a pioneer for an entire nation's tennis dreams and aspirations. These achievements, the article argued persuasively, deserved wall-to-wall coverage on their own merit. Instead, we're talking about her because an ATP player mentioned her name. That's not a Holgeren problem. That's a tennis media problem, a systemic issue with how we value and cover women's achievements in sports. The criticism expanded to include the nature of all the speculation itself. Multiple Twitter users pointed out the uncomfortable reality that people were essentially shipping two real professional athletes who'd never publicly indicated any romantic interest whatsoever in each other. These are real people, not fictional characters in a television show, one tweet emphasized. The way some of you are treating this is genuinely weird and invasive toward both of them. Even some of Holgeren's own loyal fans began questioning whether this attention was actually helping or hurting him professionally. Holgeren's had a rough few months with inconsistent results and some controversial on-court incidents, one fan account posted. Now instead of talking about his tennis and performance, we're talking about his feelings toward another player. His management team has to be absolutely furious about this becoming the dominant narrative. Tennis podcasts dedicated entire episodes to debating the ethics and implications of the situation. One particularly popular show brought on a sports psychologist who specialized in working with professional athletes. When you're a top player, you're trained to be incredibly careful with every word you speak publicly, the psychologist explained. Every statement gets analyzed and scrutinized. The fact that Holgeren let his guard down enough to speak about Alex with that level of personal investment suggests he either wasn't thinking about the implications, or he felt strongly enough that he didn't care about consequences. Either way, it's placed both players in an uncomfortable position they didn't ask for. But for every critic raising concerns, there were defenders mounting equally passionate arguments, and the defense of Holgeren's comments was just as vigorous. Why is it wrong for athletes to show genuine respect for each other? Asked a viral TikTok from a respected tennis coach. Holgeren spoke about Eala's technical abilities, her mental strength, her work ethic. He gave specific, knowledgeable praise. That's not sexist. That's not patronizing. That's one elite athlete recognizing another elite athlete's excellence. The fact that we're so shocked by sincerity says more about us and our cynical culture than it does about him. Filipino tennis fans, many of whom had been faithfully following Eala's career long before this controversy erupted, offered a different perspective grounded in their experience. For years, we've been trying desperately to get international tennis media to pay attention to Alex, one Filipino sports journalist tweeted. We've celebrated every win, every ranking milestone, every breakthrough moment, but outside the Philippines, she was largely ignored by major tennis media. If Holgeren's comments finally get her the international recognition she absolutely deserves, why would we be mad about that? A former WTA player turned broadcast commentator weighed in during a live broadcast. I remember what it was like being a young player trying to break through the ranks. When established players noticed your game and spoke about you publicly, it genuinely mattered. It raised your profile significantly. It sometimes led to better practice opportunities, more media coverage, even sponsor interest. If Holgeren's praise helps Eala's career in any tangible way, that's unquestionably a good thing. We can acknowledge the systemic problems in how women's tennis is covered while also accepting help when it comes. The debate revealed deep fundamental divisions in how people viewed the entire situation. Was this about respect or romance, professional admiration or personal interest, a heartwarming moment of tennis community, or a symptom of deeper problems in how women athletes are perceived and valued? Reddit's tennis forum became an intense battleground for these arguments. One highly upvoted comment read, "The people upset about this are massively overthinking it." Two young players who understand the pressure of representing their countries noticed each other's games and achievements. That's it. That's the entire story. Everything else is projection. The response, equally upvoted, countered. The fact that this is even a story proves the point critics are making. When was the last time a WTA player's comments about an ATP player became a multi-day news cycle dominating tennis media? We don't value women's tennis the same way, and this whole situation is evidence of that systemic inequality. Current professional players began weighing in carefully, aware their words would be scrutinized. A top 20 WTA player posted on Instagram, "Shout out to all the women grinding on tour who deserve recognition regardless of who's watching or commenting." The subtext was crystal clear, even though she didn't mention Holger Rune or Eala by name. An ATP player posted a practice photo with the caption, "Respect to all players working hard, men and women. We see you." Again, the message was deliberately vague but seemed to address the controversy swirling through tennis media. The tension reached a critical peak when a major tennis publication requested an official comment from Holger Rune's management team. The response they received was carefully worded, professionally crafted, completely sanitized. Holger Rune has great respect for all players who dedicate themselves to professional tennis. His comments about Alex Eala reflect his genuine admiration for her work ethic and talent. He wishes her continued success in her career. Professional, diplomatic, completely devoid of the warmth and spontaneity that had made the original interview go viral in the first place. The internet immediately noticed the stark difference. "They got to him," one comment read. "The lawyers and PR people took over and sanitized everything." Another observed, "That statement has zero emotion." The interview had all the emotion. Which one was real? Which one showed his true feelings? But the biggest question remained frustratingly unanswered, hanging over everything. What did Alex Eala herself think about all of this attention, speculation, and controversy? In the end, what started as an accidental revelation became a powerful reminder that professional athletes are far more than just their rankings and match results. They're young people navigating complicated lives under intense public scrutiny, trying to find moments of genuine human connection in a world that's constantly watching and analyzing their every move and word. Holger Rune's comments about Alex Eala revealed something that sports fans don't always see clearly. The human side of elite competition, the respect, the recognition, the understanding between people who live the same unique reality that outsiders can never fully comprehend. Whether their connection was friendship, romance, or simply mutual admiration between peers who understood each other's struggles, one thing became absolutely certain. Both players handled an unexpected situation with remarkable grace and dignity. And in doing so, they showed the tennis world that sometimes the most interesting stories aren't about bitter rivalries and conflicts, but about respect and recognition between athletes who see each other's excellence. What happens next in their careers and their relationship, whatever form it ultimately takes, remains to be seen and written. But this moment will be remembered as the time when an honest answer to a simple question reminded everyone that behind the rankings and the trophies and the national expectations, tennis players are just people who notice, admire, and support each other in ways that transcend competition. What do you think really happened between Holger Rune and Alex? Was it just professional respect or something deeper and more personal? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because we genuinely want to hear your perspective on tennis's most intriguing connection. And if you want more stories about the drama, emotions, and untold moments behind women's tennis, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now. We're bringing you the stories that matter, the controversies that spark passionate debate, and the human moments that remind us why we love this sport so deeply. See you in the next one.